Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not to Comic Book. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of Paper Girls. Great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, we're picking up where the last episode left off. Juniper is trying to get some STF backup, try to get them to 1999, and they use two-way radios to communicate with her STF handlers. But Tiffany's like, right, Heck and Naldo have the other radio in 1988. And I was like, wait, are we? And then they start going through it, and they're like, yeah. And it's like, right, 4166. And in that moment, all four of the Paper Girls look at each other. I was like, no way. And then they hear Mac on the other side, and it's like the harsh reality, because they're like, cool, then we could go back to 1988, we could get back to our original time, and then you guys can do whatever you're going to do. But then it's like, nope, once again, that beautiful word. Oh, I love it. I've said it so much. Time loop. Love it. Your favorite time travel word. It's like, cool, because it's like, great. Everything that happened has already technically happened. And it's like, so technically speaking, like, all this was meant to happen. Like, it's all part of the process. It all loops within itself. And you're just like, so Heck and Naldo are going to end up dying. And that's obviously going to, lead to us going on this entire adventure we've been on this entire series. And it's like, there's no escaping it. This was always meant to happen. So obviously, as older Tiffany puts it, it's like, yeah, it's like a paradox time loop that they're caught in. So, especially Mac had kind of given up hope. It's like, right, you were wanting to believe. I mean, it's one thing when it's like, cool, got the cancer thing. Cool, I just found out we're stuck in a time loop and that there's no changing this because this was always meant to happen. Because it's already happening. We're just fulfilling our part of the loop. We're just getting to this part of the loop for ourselves. So it's like, cool. Everything sucks. Everything is terrible. And, KJ went to go check up on her, and Mac was like, yeah, thank you for just being you, and touches her hand, and KJ kind of backs away. She's like, yeah, I'm going to go check for supplies. And Mac's like, you know what? No, you stay here. I don't know whether Mac internalized that as like, oh, man, like, oh, you're scared now because I'm like, oh, like, because you don't want to get close to the cancer person that's going to die. Like, you're trying to be here and to be supportive of me. But, like, yeah, when I touch you, like, oh, now all of a sudden it's different. But it's like, right, it's just because KJ got scared, because it was almost like, oh, because she probably started feeling something and probably has been feeling something for a while, but now with the context of her older self in 1999, she probably understands what that's all about, and she probably just got scared, still figuring it all out. But sadly, Prioris already caught up to them, so it's like, well, this sucks. So she's got Mac in her sights. KJ comes to help, but Mac is like, dude, I just want to forget all this. You want to send me back home? Let's go back. Let me go back home. Just wipe my memory of all this. Which obviously KJ's like, that means you're going to forget all about this. You're going to forget about us. We're going to be like strangers to you. But also for Mac is like, it doesn't matter. Like, I'm going to die in 4 years, so what does it matter, This is the end of the rope. It's just kind of like, at least I want to just forget about this. I mean, knowing you have, as she puts it, an expiration date, that's a guillotine that's always going to be held above her head for the next 4 years. Knowing what she's got in front of her, and now knowing, like, cool, there's no changing it too, because I always end up dead in some shape or form because of this whole time loop. It's like, yeah, I always end up dead, so. But, or at least, regardless of it, whether it's you guys or whether it's the cancer itself. But at the same time, young Tiff ends up leaving her book for older Tiff. It's like, right, because older Tiff's like, I don't want to forget this. Like, knowing about time travel, about all this, is like the most interesting thing that's happened to me. But young Tiff left her the journal, and it's like, right, wrote on it, you invent time travel. And I was like, wait. I was like, wait, are we saying? And then she gets pulled up, and obviously she's getting her memories wiped. We also see the same thing happen to Juniper as well, and you're like, interesting. You're like, so what does that mean? Like, in the grand scheme of things. But going back to the Tiffany thing really quickly, so I'm like, okay, she snaps back, gets brought back to where she was. She ends up picking up the book. She's like, why am I on this farm? Whatever the case may be. And it's like, wait, I invented, like, what's all this? And she eventually goes off and eventually starts time travel because, or at least helps invent it. I think it's kind of implied, near the end of the episode, she was at least part of the team that helped invent it, I think. So the interesting thing is too, which is like, once again, just like the breaking of, like, once again, that's the paradox of it. It's like, right, she got this information from 2019 Larry, but they're now back in 1999, where 12-year-old Tiffany gave 1999 Tiffany the knowledge to create time travel. So time travel was involved to make time travel itself. It's this age-old time travel quandary of, like, time loops and stuff, and just everything being like an Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail. It's just all, like, endless loop feeding into itself. Obviously, you had the whole Larry situation, wanting to just stay behind because he's like, right, I need to take care of my Mima. Like, if I don't take care of her, no one else will. But for Aaron, she kind of snaps back at him and is like, right, if you just die here, then that's not going to do her any good either. So it's kind of like, which, obviously Aaron knows from her future and her perspective on things, how, what that means in the grand scheme of things of, like, being in Larry's shoes. She knows the future, what her future holds in that regard. Plus, where she herself currently, well, in 1988 kind of was in that process of, like, as her sister put it, making herself a martyr. But Mac and KJ meet with the grandfather, and he kind of explains, like, right, I'm gonna put you guys back. We're not gonna kill you. And we also reveal that the person, obviously figured it was someone important to her, but the person that KJ accidentally killed was Prioris's brother. And it's like, ugh, it's like, oh man, because that's why she was so hell bent on revenge. It's like, right, it hit super close to home. Like, obviously KJ didn't mean to do that, but still. When it's all said and done, him using the analogy of the that cassette tape being like, right, the STF thinks that they are making a new mixtape, when in actuality they're just recording over the songs that are already there, recording new songs. And you record that. Every time you record more and more, what happens, the audio quality gets a little worse and worse and worse. It's not a one-to-one, but I kind of treat it like the whole Flashpoint thing of, like, at least in, like, the TV show Flash. After he undid Flashpoint, Jay Garrett was like, yeah, you'll never be able to put time quite back the way you want it to. It's not a one-for-one, but it's the whole thing of, like, yeah, you think you're doing, you can't fix every little thing without it causing more and more issues to the timeline. I mean, because he's like, look at this. Their attempts to try and fix things, get rid of all the bad, has ripple effects, and lo and behold, the universe is literally going to fall apart because you're breaking the boundaries of time and space and, like, changing things on such a cosmic level that it's causing such a massive issue, and the universe is kind of collapsing upon itself. The moment we saw the pterodactyl, I was like, wait, I was like, oh, so it's not just 2019 and 1988 bleeding here into 1999. It's also prehistoric era. But I'm like, oh, so I was like, oh, I'd made the comparison of season 2 finale of Legends of Tomorrow, like, oh, they broke time. It's like there was a literal dinosaur involved in them breaking time there too. But it's like, no, it's apparently the old watch has a pterodactyl. I'm like, we're not going to explain that. Just like, oh, the grandfather has a pterodactyl named Terra. It was like, is that his, not Terra, Tessa. I'm like, is that your pet or what? Like, how is that? Because also, like, Mac and KJ kind of get into it later on of, like, wait, how is it what you guys do any different? Like, you killed people. Like, how is that not? I mean, granted, they killed people who are part of the STF, but it's still like, yeah, you are responsible for killing people who are just kind of naturally living their lives in a timeline. And his justification was, it is what it is. Like, everything happens for a reason. He kind of stammered when he was like, oh, I don't have a boss. I'm like, you don't? So I guess this is an organization that just, like, is he? Because I'm assuming he's the boss, but it's like, maybe it's the whole situation. Maybe they call him grandfather because maybe he's the oldest of, like, the current the current people in the old watch. Maybe he's the oldest one, or maybe just, like, seniority wise, maybe that's why they call him grandfather. I don't know. But for him to be like, yeah, I don't have a boss, it's just, I guess it's like they just follow the doctrine that's kind of been passed down. It's just an organization that goes from one generation to the next, and now it's just like up to him and the other current people a part of the watch. I just think that's interesting that they have no, like, I guess he's the top dog, or at least maybe, because he's like, yeah, I'm kind of where the buck stops. Like, there is no boss, I have no balls. because they want to talk to him, because it's like, right, like, how can you be the ones that kind of dictate so much? You're the one that get to kill people. But it's like, yeah, like, everything that happens for a reason. It's just meant to be. He's just kind of like, it is what it is. Like, our job is to keep the timeline as much the same as possible. But it's like, yeah, like, you killing people and doing all that you've done, it's not just the STF. Like, you guys have got to be causing, like, some fissures and, like, cracks in time with some of the decisions you make. But I guess maybe the point is to mitigate it. Yeah, we cause our little things here and there with some of the STF people we kill, but at the end, we're just trying to mitigate as much as damage as possible. And then you have Larry standing up to trying to do the right thing, and ended up getting gobbled by Tessa, the pterodactyl, and you're like, huh. So, Juniper got mind wiped. You ended up getting eaten by a pterodactyl. Once again, that's the paradox of it all, because it's like, wait, you die here, so you don't get to, it is actually kind of interesting, because it's like, right, you still died in 1999, just you didn't live to 2019 to time travel back to 1999 just to get murdered by a giant laser from a robot. Now you're getting eaten by a pterodactyl. Going out in the most meta way both times. You're getting killed by the future, the other way you're getting killed by the past. It's fucking weird, dude. That's kind of crazy. But it's like, right, him and Juniper never get together, so... Like, that's why I'm wondering, like, what happens to these timelines, like, with all this stuff that's happening? Because it's like, because there are timelines where it's like because it's a paradox, some of those timelines still go on. That's why there is an older Tiffany. That's why there's an older Erin, even though she didn't get to see herself, or an older KJ. That's why they're there, like, because the timeline is if they lived their entire lives. So everything that happened, like Larry in the future and everything, still happened. Older Erin still happened. So but there has to be a timeline where all that went down normally when none of this STF stuff happened. But then you're also like, but it's also a time loop, so it always does happen because it was always meant to happen. So, poor Larry. He just, and even later on, Erin's like, man, that sucks. Larry didn't deserve that. He actually saved this time. It's like, his Erin kind of backed off of him a little bit last episode after kind of chewing him up about everything, about, like, right, kind of dealing with her own death. So it's, and I love him trying to explain things to Purist. It's like, yeah, like, I gave the guy an opportunity, right? You saw that, right? I tried to talk him down. I didn't want him to get chomped. He kind of left me no choice. All right, let's go find the other time travelers. So they're trying to hold themselves up. Mac is like, cool, we're about to die, so I probably should just go ahead and tell you guys, I'm sick. Cancer. That's what's going to happen. 4 years from now, I'm going to die. And obviously for Erin, it's like, wait, you told me. And it's like, yeah, I kind of lied. And she's like, I'm sorry. And they're both apologetic to Mac. And it's just like, trying to figure out what to do next. It's like, right. Because none of them want to forget each other. And as Mac says, you couldn't even if you tried, And I love that whole thing of, like, she's like, no way I could forget about Mac's, like, smoker breath. She's like, hey, I quit. It's like, you just had a smoke on top of Tiff's, like, roof, like, last night. And it's like, hey, come on, that was a clove cigarette. Also, it's only been a night? That was, like, one night ago? Because it's like, so much shit's happened and that was only a night ago? Really? So I love that. But they kind of had no choice, and they ended up surrendering because it's like, no matter what they face together. Paper Girls, they're in this together. They made it this far. Yeah, little bump in the roads, dysfunction here and there, but they made it together. So it's like, let's see this through together. And they don't know, like, when it's all said and done, will we remember any of this? Will we remember some of it or all of it? Or what's going to happen? And Prioris, the moment she heard Tiffany's name, she was almost like, wait, what? Because I figured as much. It's like, right, this all goes back to the Quilkin Institute, the institute she made, at least made some progress in making in 2019. We have no, like, it was established at that point, but we don't know. I mean, who knows how long it had already been established. I don't know if it had just gotten established that year, like, because Tiffany didn't have enough time to read up about it in 2019. So, when it's all said and done, Prioris talks about the fact is, obviously she was about their age when she was recruited into this war by the Old Guard, because it was like 4th of July in the future, the STF attacked because they wanted to blame the Old Watch, like blame all of them for the way time is and the crappy future that they come from. And so for her, it's like this war drags on and on. She wanted to try and end this war as quickly as possible. I mean, the war already cost her so much, including her brother, her life. She had to live as a soldier. It's like, I want this war to end, just the death and destruction. It just needs to stop. But the grandfather won't, she's like, even the grandfather won't admit there is another way around this, because he's talking to Tiffany and it's like, right, you were part of the original team that discovered, made the discovery, kind of, I think implying like, she didn't really say it, but I think the context of the conversation, like she's the one that helped discover time travel, so, and made it possible. So you've got to, she's helping them because she wants to end this war. It's like, if you can go back and if you can change things. So they all get, she was sending them to, I guess, the future, because it was like, right, talk to Dr. Quilkin. Like, I guess it was going to be like her in the future, maybe. And ultimately, KJ even being like, right, I promise if I can undo this, I will. Sadly, Prioris got shot, and KJ and Aaron took like the bugs that, helped patch her up. She ended up using them to patch Prioris up. Sadly, her and Tiffany got separated from Mac and KJ, but Prioris was able to get them out as well. But sadly, you're like, okay, because of time travel and stuff, at first I was like, right, if they go to the same time, if they land, that means like they would have landed God knows how long. Maybe it's like, oh, by the time you get there, it's actually been 5 months, even though you guys landed like maybe like 3 minutes apart or something like that. Time travel is weird like that. But Prioris is like, right, that was Dr. Kilkin. Like, she'll make a different choice this time. Like, if she can convince herself, and if like they can change things, like maybe it's not the far future that I think it is. And they might be trying to go back to 2019 again. Because even Prioris is like, oh, do you want to try and save your friends? Or either take her back to the future like she wanted to go to. Like, once again, whether that's 2019 future or whether that's even further in the timeline, who knows? But it seems like Aaron and Tiffany landed in the past. Because the attire that we saw some of the people wearing, plus the drive-in movie theater thing, I was like, isn't that a 50s thing? I looked it up. I mean, obviously they were super popular in the 50s. Who knows when they fully went out of style? But I'm like, oh, they're potentially in the 50s, combined with like the aesthetic and being and the drive-in movie theaters and stuff like that. Which is kind of the worst time for those two characters to be in, because you're like, oh boy, that's also the dangers of time travel being in a minority. You're like, oh, that's that ugly thing of like, yeah, there's only certain time periods. I mean, God, it's the 80s, and it's not like things are that great. It's like Aaron was already being called like a Jap by a racist douchebag in 88. And it's like, yeah, I'm Chinese, but like to anyone in the 50s, she might as well just be she might as well be Japanese. And, not too long after World War II and everything, so... And once again, it's not like Tiffany's going to get it easy, too. You're like, oh, that's going to be the ugly side of time travel. So they're there while Mac and KJ are potentially... I mean, who knows where they are in the future. Like, I think Prioris ended up sending them to a different time, which also that was kind of jacked up with the grandfather, because it's like, right, your time is your time, and ended up removing the bugs that were keeping her alive and healing her. I mean, she kind of like didn't sit still long enough for them. Only a few of them got attached to her to heal her, so she probably would have... Maybe she would have made it if the grandfather hadn't taken those bugs, but it's like, right, you betrayed us. You kind of went against what we are and what we stand for, but that's kind of a wild place to leave off this season. I wasn't sure how it was actually going to play out and where we're going to end up, but surprising place to be. And of course, the Paper Girls are going to, sadly not be 100% together, but they are in very interesting pairings, and I'm curious to see, because Tiffany hasn't really been on any adventures with any of the others. I mean, it kind of plays into her story, like that she was off on adventures like for the past couple episodes with herself. Like, once again, she never, like, she's okay enough with the others, but, like, Mac and Aaron bonded, KJ and Mac bonded, so, like, but Tiffany hasn't really 100% bonded with the others. I mean, I guess, to be fair, she's the one that kind of extended the olive branch first and foremost when it came to Aaron, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see where that pairing kind of takes them potentially going forward in the future, so... At the time of me recording this, which is July 31st, well, it should be today when these go up, hopefully, because I'm recording this episode now, but yeah, it's still unclear whether or not there's going to be a second season. To be fair, the show literally dropped on Friday. It's only been 2 days, barely even 2 days. So, of course, they're probably not going to make any. It's probably going to be a while before we get any information on whether it's coming back for a second season or not. I hope that it does. I know it's based on a comic that ran for at least a good decent amount of time, so I'm sure like there's still plenty of story to tell. So many unanswered questions. I wonder will we ever get to see what the future is that the STF is fighting against. I mean, we hear about it, but I wonder will we actually get to see it and kind of get to learn more about the old watch and why they do what they do, the grandfather, the whole Tessa, the pterodactyl situation, also the complicated time loop that the paper girls find themselves in. Will we see Ali Wong return as older Aaron, or at least like a version of older Aaron or some point in time? Because maybe they end up in the future. Maybe it's like 2019, but maybe it's... I would assume it would have to be like after they already left with old Aaron to go back to 2019 Aaron to go back to 1999. I'd assume that. So because they're probably trying to talk to 2019 Tiffany about what's what. So sadly, they don't have... It was going to be a harder case to plead considering they don't have Tiffany, 12-year-old Tiffany there to kind of convince 2019 Tiffany like she convinced 1999 Tiffany, if 2019 is where they ended up heading. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see potentially where a second season would take us with all of this. Fingers crossed, hoping we get a second season, because I'd love to see what happens next. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.